Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Environmentalism. Uh, with the introduction of our work, Environmentalism is Pakistan's first ever podcast series on environmental issues in Pakistan, South Asia, and the rest of the world. Environmentalism is designed to shed light on emerging local and regional environmentalists who help shine light on pressing and rapid occurring climate change issues. With that, I would like to introduce you to my guest, who is from Kenya, and we all work as environmentalists. We all work together to bring positive change towards the society. And with that, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Kipto.
Mr. Chinedu is a young Nigerian changemaker currently studying for a PhD degree at the Open University Business School in UK. His research focuses on dynamics and trends of renewable energy entrepreneurship in Africa. He was the research coordinator of climate change and gender club of the Pan African University Institute of Water and Energy Sciences, Algeria. Mr. Chinedu has also been selected as a delegate to represent Nigeria at the 16th United Nations Climate Change Conference on Youth that will be held in Glasgow from 28th till 31st October to 2021. Mr. Chinedu has a bachelor's degree in economics, a master's degree in economics, and another master's degree in energy policy from Nigeria, Algeria. He is enthusiastic about contributing solutions toward climate adaptation and mitigation and have published a paper on nexus between COVID-19 and climate change.
Thank you so much, Reha. I think you've mentioned pretty much about myself. So the most important thing is that I'm a conservationist. Yeah, my name is Kiptoche Moyo, and I'm from Kenya, Africa, a part where we are receiving a lot of the impacts of climate change, and we are trying to save our environment. So I am a volunteer at Greenpeace Africa, JLFX Nairobi, and Isiolo Conservationist Trust. And it's so good to be here. It's so good to be part of what environmentalism does. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's great. That's great. With that, Kipto, I'll ask you my first question, which is what is environmental conservation and natural resource management?
Thank you so much, Leha, for that question. So, environmental conservation and natural resources management is, let me define it as my course.
That
It's a
would be
very important.
perfect.
Sorry.
That would be perfect. Please do.
Yeah. So environmental conservation and natural resource management, how I understand it in my course, it's that I did in the from the University of Nairobi. So it's a mixture where where people are taught about the environmental conservation, how it's important, what the environment comprises of, and then people are also taught about the natural resources management, all about it, like its definition that we'll be getting to later, why it's important, and how people can engage in it. So let me give that answer as short as that because we'll be expounding on this much later in the course of maybe the interview as I speak more about what I do.
Okay, thank you. That's great. Uh, I know natural resource management, and it's so important at this point right now. It's so important for us to conserve it, to have methods as much as we can on sustainability, and natural resource management itself is something that I think everybody, regardless if they have a degree or not in environmental management or whatever, they should know because this is the only way we will learn how to sustainably use our resources. With that, I'll move to my next question, which is why do we need to conserve the environment? Because people don't understand the importance of that, the essence of that.
Thank you so much, Aleha, for that question. We define the environment as everything around us. And so if we define the environment as everything that is around us, so that means like it's our life. Like for example, right now, everything around me is maybe people are around me, and that's part of my environment, so that's life. And then also if I go outside to the environment, to outside like maybe if I go for a walk or something and I say what's my environment, my environment maybe like I'm bordering myself with trees, and that is life. So basically why we need to conserve the environment is that it's our life. Like it's really part of us. I am your surrounding, and someone else is my surrounding. And then also, if we go to where there are no people, there are other living objects or living organisms, and that is life that is around us, and life is to be preserved. So environment should be conserved because it's our life. Like we derive almost, if not actually it's everything, we derive everything from from the environment, starting from our food, starting from going to water, going to air, even medicine, everything that we need from our lives. So really, if we destroy the environment, we're not going to live, because it's our life. And so it's very important if we conserve it, because we derive everything from it, our basic needs. And also it's where we develop, like it's where we live in our shelter. Like if I need to plant maybe my food, I'm going to the environment. If I need to construct my house, I'm going to do it on the environment. So that means I have to conserve it, I have to preserve it. Yeah.
Well, that's absolutely necessary, obviously, but I really wanted, because our environmentalism really focuses on every really little detail about everything. Okay, so with that, I'll move to my next question, which is that, and that is, all my questions are based upon your experience in Kenya. Okay, so when we talk about any of this stuff, you can give any examples on how it's impacting in a positive or negative way in Kenya. So, with that, my third question is that, what is natural resource management and how we need it, and how natural resource management are managed in Kenya?
Oh yeah, thanks for that, Leha. I think I'm more of now. I From the previous questions I defined, like from the perspective of their definitions, and maybe now from here henceforth I'll try to bring it home, what is happening here in Kenya. So thank you for that, Aleha. So coming to your question, what is natural resources management and how we need it? So just for, using the layman's language, natural resources management is the wise and careful use of our resources, or someone else might define it as being real or the true custodians of our resources. And this is very important because there's a lot of there's a lot of there's a lot of resources that we have in our environment. Here in Kenya, we have minerals, we have fisheries in our lakes, and also we are lucky to have part of the Indian Ocean here with us. So that means that there's also some other fisheries in the ocean. We have forests, we have a lot as part of the resources that we have. And how we need the natural resources management is because there's a lot of over exploitation of these resources, especially here in Kenya. In the past, if you draw a graph of the forest that we had as a resource, you'll find that the graph is actually coming down. Like maybe if we had maybe 25% of our country, actually not if we had. So maybe in the 60s, in the 80s, the forest percentage in Kenya was maybe 25%. And now that curve has over time came down, like strategically coming down. And then this is 2020, we are at about approximately 7.4% of our forest cover, so at a resource. So that means if we continue exploiting for our forests the way we're doing, that means maybe in the next 50 years we'll be at 2%. So we need this natural resource management because we need to be more wise on how we are using our resources. We need to be more careful. We have to be better custodians of our resources. Talking about the fisheries, uh, in the 80s, like people used the traditional modes of fishing. So that means they could get less fish from the lakes or from the ocean. But now people now are using modernized equipment, so techniques, so they get more fish. They fish overnight, and then that means that they're getting more fish even than we need. And so we need the natural resource management, because if we continue this way, in the next few decades, our generation will not be having food to use. And so we need it, because it tells us, natural resource management reminds us that there's another generation that will be there after us, like we know the last ones. So I don't have to cut down all the trees in my region, because I'll be having my great grandchildren coming after me, and they'll need also the same things. They'll need the privilege of having the resources that I am having currently. And so it's pretty much it's an integral part that we should embrace as a generation, because we need it. And also, just to mention before I wrap up on this question, also our wildlife is part of our resources that we have, and we need to conserve it as a resource, because there's a lot of poaching where I come from, and there's a lot of what we call conflicts between people and wildlife as a resource, and they really conflict, because a lot of people don't see wildlife as a resource. They see it as a baggage. Like if I see an animal intruding my farm, I don't see it as a resource. I see it as something that I should get rid of. And so it's really important, if we tell our generation that we will need these animals in the next decades, for our generation to see them. Not only to see them, but because they also play a very major role in ecosystems. Like each and everything that exists, it has something that it plays. So it's very important, if we manage wildlife the way it's supposed to be managed, if we give them space, if we don't just develop, if we don't go into the parks and start building houses, if we don't go to the parks and we start constructing roads, because we are blocking their routes, we are interfering with them. So as a resource, it won't see it won't see the future, because it's going to collapse at the end of it all. So that's where basically the natural resource management comes in, because it's an important thing, and we need to embrace it. So yeah, so that's it. And just before I wrap up again, we need it because there's a lot of also wastage. um, Let me use this example, as food also is a resource that we get from the environment, and a lot of people waste food. So we actually don't think about our future generations that will come after us, that won't get the same privilege that we have. And we need to look at this, because wasting also food, not necessarily the food that you get. I'm not talking about the KFC. I'm not talking about the chicken in. I'm talking about the food that you get from the environment. So if we waste it, it's going to be to be depleted from the environment. Like if I get more than I need, then I'm depriving someone of the same thing that maybe he or she would need in the next 5 or 10 years. So we need natural resource and management. Aleha. So let that be the end of my answer. I hope I answered it correctly.
No, you have excellently explained it pretty well. Yeah, that was amazing. Okay. When if I put that in a way that what has climate changes brought, what has the effect that climate change has brought in Kenya, and with that, I would want you to shed light on this climate change factor as a conservationist and also as a natural resource manager.
Thank you for the question, Aleha. So, answering the question as an environmental conservationist and also a natural resources manager. So, As I was just introducing myself, I was saying Africa is being a recipient of the effects of climate change, and we're really facing it really hard. It's really hitting us hard. And so here in Kenya, we've not been left behind. We've been part of the bandwagon that has been suffering from climate change, and we've been trying to adapt and mitigate the same. So, how climate change has affected us, or what it has brought here in Kenya? One is food insecurity. As you were reading my bio, I'm very interested in having food security. But climate change has really made things hard for us here in Kenya because it has brought a lot of insecurity when we talk about food. And when I talk about food insecurity, it's not only on people, but also for animals. So, if I can just share this, when I was growing up, we used to cultivate a farm, and we got 20 bags of maize, and okay, we planted maize and then beans and millet, and so we used to get roughly about 20 bags of maize. It was a 2 acre farm, and the beans, it could go up maybe to about 10 bags, and the millet was also very ripe. But nowadays, when we plant the same thing, we get very less bags of maize. It's about maybe 12. Maybe if we have a very if you're very lucky, we can get 15 bags, but we can never get to 20 like we used to get like in the last 10 years. The beans, we only get about 6 bags or 5 bags. So when I try and ask my parents like what happened, they'll tell me that nowadays there's no rain. We don't get a lot of rain that can make us get more yield. And when you talk about rain, it's definitely about the weather. So in the last 10 years, it means there was more rain, but now there's no much rain that can sustain this harvest. So that is climate change. And now that means that the food that we get cannot sustain the number of people whom it used to sustain way back the last 10 years. That means that there's a lot of food insecurity, but not, and that's our farm. But now we have some other farms. Some other people have even stopped engaging in the farming because they say it's a waste of time. Why should I do farming when it's not profiting me, when I don't get enough yield that can sustain my family? I need to engage in something that will be of help to me. And also, if you talk about food insecurity in animals, it's at least for human beings we can think of something else. We can say, okay, what else? If I don't get maize and beans on my table, I can start thinking of something else, like I need to get something. It's something else for my family. But now if we talk about animals, they basically some they're grazers, they're maybe browsers, and then they're the carnivores and all that. So if we talk about the grazers, um if they don't get grass, they don't have an option because there was no rain, grass didn't grow. So maybe we talk about maybe the giraffe. So what am I going to feed on? There are no twigs. I'm a browser. What am I going to feed on? Talk about the zebras. There's no grass. What am I going to feed on? I don't eat meat. So this is food insecurity in a nutshell. Like what is doing to animals and people because of climate change. Because now, as I was just mentioning about the animals, like if we don't get what I normally eat, my menu, like a zebra wakes up, its menu is not on the table, it's not in the park, or it's not in the field. So as time goes by, it's definitely going to die. And why? Because of climate change. And just as I was mentioning about the rains, about the farms, climate change has brought about changed rainfall patterns here in Kenya. Normally, people start cultivating farms in February, March, and then the rain starts coming in April, May. But nowadays, people cultivate their farms in February, March, and then they now wait to grow their seeds in April and wait for the rains. But the rains don't come in April. The rains don't come in May. The rains maybe start in June, July. And I have planted maybe my seeds, I have put them on the ground in April, and the rain comes 2 months later. The seed dormancy, even the seeds will maybe die in the soil. And so it has brought a lot of inconveniences if, as far as rainfall patterns is concerned. And then there's also the issue of disturbed migratory routes for animals. And this has been a reality when we talk about our wildlife. As a natural resource manager, I'm really worried about our wildlife. Because if you talk about disturbed migratory routes, that means there is no breeding because animals basically move because of breeding, interbreeding, that is. And so if there is no movement of animals, that means there's no breeding taking place. And if there is, there's what we call maybe animals from the same. For example, if we have a lion and then it has its family, and then now maybe if a lion have gets cubs, so they'll be breeding amongst the cubs, as in there will be no genes from outside, and this is actually going to affect the kind of generation of the animals that's going to come up out of our packs, because basically basically what normally used to happen is that if we have pack A and then we have pack B, then animals could move from pack B to pack A, and then those who in pack A could move to pack B, and then they have a part in between. So the A and B are called islands. Like so, they used to be like rotation among the animals, and then there was now interbreeding amongst them. But nowadays, we have blocked these migratory routes, and also climate change. How it has come about, the migratory routes is that animals move with seasons. Like maybe when it starts to rain here, and then there's no rain somewhere else, now they will come in where the rains are. But now they wait for the rains maybe in one place to come, but there's no rain. If I can use the example of maybe even frogs. So frogs normally wait for the rain to come, and then they start mating. But nowadays, now they wait for the rain is not coming until they die. So this whole circle is affecting the animals. And also here in Kenya we have the migration of the wildebeests that normally move from our neighboring country called Tanzania, and then they come to Kenya. So they come to Kenya to breed. But now, given the insignificance of the food here in Kenya, like now if they come in, they don't get any food, they'll go back. They won't get the time to breed and all that. So that's how climate change has affected the migratory routes. And also another thing that we've experienced that climate change has brought about in Kenya is floods. And the floods are brought about the if it rains really hard, because there's a lot of intensity. It's not like how it used to rain in the previous years, because it's raining, the intensity of the rain is very high. If it used to be maybe 400 millimeters, if you measured using a rain gauge, nowadays maybe it can be 700, and this is causing a lot of floods. And floods now bring about siltation. There's a lake that I used to see from where I live when I was young. But nowadays, I try looking at the lake, I can't even see it, because there's been a lot of siltation, because there's been floods over time, and it has really made the lake very small. And that has actually affected a lot of lakes and rivers here in Kenya. And then we have also floods bring about diseases, because if you have floods, they're actually moving a lot of organisms. You don't know what kind of organisms are being moved, and there's been a lot of issues to do with cholera, because cholera is waterborne. And so, where I am currently, I'm in Nairobi, and so we normally experience floods in some parts of the city. And so now these floods, like they sweep everything. They sweep maybe fecals that maybe are in our slum areas, and then they sweep them into the rivers. And now those under now under like under Nairobi, those who are receiving this water from the rivers, they end up getting these diseases like cholera because they drink the same water that has been maybe sweeping all the dirt that is in the city. That has been a problem. And maybe I can talk about the last thing that climate change has brought in Kenya. It has brought about. I've talked about the diseases from the perspective of floods, but there's also climate change has brought about diseases in as far as creating favorable habitats for pathogens. Where I come from, like where I was born and raised, when I grew up, I didn't used to see mosquitoes, so I never used a net when I was growing up as a child. And nowadays, when I travel to my to my home country, there are mosquitoes. So I'm wondering, like, what happened? When I grew up, there were no mosquitoes. Now there are mosquitoes. Like, what happened? Now, as an environmental conservationist, I've learned about the habitats of these animals. Um, the mosquito larvae normally breed in areas of about maybe 30 degrees to maybe 32 or maybe 20, 29 thereabout. And so the thing is, climate change, there's been climate change and it has caused about the temperatures to rise, and so it has created a very good habitat for these mosquitoes to breed in where I come from. But in the past, we had cooler climate, cooler temperatures that didn't support the mosquitoes. But nowadays they have a favorable climate, and so it is causing diseases because why? It's a pathogen. It's causing malaria in where I come from. In the past, we didn't used to hear about someone having malaria in where I come from, but nowadays such cases are starting to come up. So that is just the effect of climate change, what it has brought in where I come from. So let me keep it. I don't know if I can say let me keep it short as that or as long as that. So that's it, Aleha.
Thank you so much. That's a lot of information, and that's the sort of information we need. We need other people to understand that it's not only your region, it's not only your country that's being affected by climate change. We are being affected by it. Our cultivation is being affected by it. Our animals are being affected by it. As far as I know, Africa has the largest jungles and the largest forests that has a million types of biodiversities. And if the climate change will go at the speed at it is right now, it might, just it won't be good for the animals because climate change is not what they want. It's not what they need. Thank you so much, Kipto. With that, I'll move to my very last question. That is, uh, I want you to talk about climate change and how it is very important uh, for animals. In perspective, we're not talking about humans, and because we understand that, but why it's because you are a conservationist, right? So you pretty much know that how we need to save environment for those who can't speak for themselves.
That's a very I don't want to say tricky question. Climate change is when I talk about just as I was mentioning about what climate change has done to the animals, and what you've mentioned earlier is that climate is not what they need as animals because they don't even know what's going on because they can't speak for themselves. And that's why environmentalism exists just to bring some of these things into perspective and tell people, hey, animals are suffering. And so climate change um, is very important because one, it has reminded us how important conservation is. In the last decades, when there was the industrial revolution, many people didn't think about the environment. People were thinking about development. And so this generation has actually seen it, that we are receiving a lot of effects because of climate change. Animals are starting to disappear, and maybe I forgot to mention this. Climate change is also reducing the population of animals here in Kenya or even across the world. we are having a lot of extinctions happening. We used to see some animals in the past. Nowadays, we don't see them, and all thanks to climate change, and all thanks to those who are actually jeering on to the climate change and saying that climate change doesn't happen, climate change is a hoax, and all that. So thanks to them, and that's why we really need this perspective of climate change to remind us that there is a certain category of our environment that is suffering, and it needs our voice. And climate change has reminded us that there's something actually that we can do. That's why people are rising up. That's why there's environmentalism, and what it does is very important, because climate change has actually put it in our minds that hey, there's something that you can do, and then people are saying that this is the last generation to do something about climate change, and then there's a lot of actions that are happening here in Kenya. We are having a lot of community-based organizations coming up to raise voice about maybe the animals that are being affected in the ranches, in the fields that are receiving the effects of climate change. We have a lot of NGOs that are coming up to say there's something that is happening. We have a lot of funding that is happening. Funders, a lot of donors that are saying we need to do something about what's happening in our environment. Aleha, I don't know if I'm answering your question or if I'm just saying my own things.
No, that's exactly what, because it's perfect. I just needed a bit of, light on how what's happening in Kenya, and that's what I really need to know.
Oh, okay, okay. So I answered the question correctly.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, that was
thanks, Aleha.
yeah. Okay, okay. Thank you so much for your information, for your time, and all the way talking to us from Kenya and being part of our podcast. With that, I would like to wrap up. Um, from Kenya today, we had Kipto, and we learned a lot about how it's not like I always say in my each episode that it's not a regional, it's not a national issue, it's a global issue. So today we heard from Kenya that how sustainable is only possible if we will know natural resource management, how that if that just like Kipto said, that if we keep taking more and more than we need, we will deprive someone else who deserves it. And also we've learned that climate change has brought change and is causing food insecurity in Kenya, and not only that for people, but it's also causing food insecurity for animals. We learned that change in the rainfall pattern affects cultivation, devastating effects on wildlife. Now we always in almost all our podcasts we focus on humans, and how it's just always about human beings, but we never think about something that is also the part of our food cycle, that's also the part of our food chain, animals. What would earth be without animals is the question I leave you to think about today. That please think about for those who can't advocate from themselves. Africa is one of those places where there is a wide diversity of wildlife that stays there. There are types of animals. There are wildebeest there that breed in seasons, and if there will be a rain change pattern, that will be devastating for the entire thing. They might extinct as well. And also with that, we learned that there is a rapid overraining, which is causing floods and which is leading to diseases in Kenya. We also learned that as humans, we know how to adopt, we know adaptability, but animals, they only know adaptability according to the season they're going to mate, they're going to have they're going to change from one place to another and go and have their own mating season, and in that perspective they know only adaptation. But they don't know adaptation like we know. They can't go make another house, have another AC, have some other water resource. We need to know management. We need to know natural resource management. We need to know conservation. We need to know sustainability. With that, this is Aleha Rathore signing off from my podcast and from our guest, Mr. Kipto. Thank you so much for your time, sir. And this is me and Kipto signing off from our podcast. Peace out. Please take care of Earth.